Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. You're in for a treat right now. Our next act is an award-winning comedian who does over 70 vocal impressions. How about a big welcome right now for Mr. Mark Staggs as Festus?
Howdy! Oh, that wasn't good. Howdy! Man, dad blame me, doggone, tell you that was good right there. Boy, it's good, I'm gonna tell you, see young'uns out here. You know, I was just thinking the other day when our second child was born. Now, Mama didn't want to rush off to the hospital, so we waited to the last minute. And she hollered at me, "Festus, get that hospital on the phone." Well, I called them up, talking to a nurse, and she said, "How far apart are them contractions?" Well, I asked Mama. She said, "Tell her 5 minutes." I said, 5 minutes. And that nurse said, "Is this her first child?" I said, "No, this is her husband." Just can't get good help, I tell you. Of course, now Grandpa was a big part of my growing up, and he was always around. And I tell you, there was one afternoon, now, I was already grown, and I was sitting on the back porch, and Grandpa was with me, and Daddy, and all of a sudden, my son was about 6 years old. He come busting out there, ran right over to Grandpa. He said, "Grandpa, can you make any animal noises?" Grandpa said, "Well, sure I can, boy. What you want to hear?" He said, "Can you do a frog?" Grandpa went, "Reedy, reedy." Soon as he done that, that boy started hollering and jumping up and down, screaming, "We going to Disneyland!" I said, "Hold on, boy. What's all this talk about going to Disneyland?" He said, "Well, Daddy, Mama said when Grandpa croaks, we're going to Disneyland." Oh. You know, of course, about 2 weeks before old Grandpa passed away, now, Grandma, I never heard of this, but she took lard and she put it all up and down his back like that. After that, he went downhill fast. You know, the worst part about getting old, though, is forgetting stuff. Do I hear amen? Oh, I tell you what, there was a day back in Dodge City, I forgot half of the whole day. The way it started out is I had my dog with me, and we was a-walking down, we was going to go see old Doc, and this stranger stopped me dead in the middle there. He said, "Hey, mister." I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Have you lived here all your life?" I said, "Not yet." He didn't ask me anything else after that. Well, I took my dog. I went to see Doc Adams. I carried him up there, and old Doc Cantankerous like he is. He said, "What do you got that dog up there?" I said, "Doc, I need you to look at him." He said, "What's wrong with him?" I said, "He's cross-eyed." So I took him and handed him to old Doc. He held him, and he started looking in his eyeballs and feeling around on his head. Then he stopped. He turned and looked at me, and he said, "Festus, I'm going to have to put him down." I said, "Doc, just because he's cross-eyed?" Doc said, "No, because he's heavy." And cantankerous old fella. Well, right after that, we heard the dinner bell, so we headed on down to Delmonico's. I tied my dog up outside. We sat down at a table and was just sitting there waiting on the waiter. That waiter finally came by, and that fella only had one leg. Told us he used to work at IHOP. That fella, going on, tell you. Well, me and old Doc is sitting there gee-jawing, and then Miss Taylor seen Doc, and she come over to the table. Doc shook his head. He knowed what was a-coming. She said, "Doc, I need your help. I need help to lose weight." Doc said, "Miss Taylor, now I told you you need to cut down on eating and do some kind of exercise." Boy, she flew off a handle at him. She said, "Doc, obesity runs in my family." Doc said, "Miss Taylor, nobody runs in your family." That's the problem right there. And that's when I heard him. somewhere in that restaurant there was two ladies talking loud, I tell you. And I heard them, and they was speaking English, but it wasn't American. They was from somewhere else. Curiosity got the best of me. Doc, he went on back to the office, so I got up, and I was starting to cut through tables to see if I could put eyeballs on them, and all of a sudden, Miss Johnson jumps up right in front of me. And she said, Festus Hagen, I want your opinion. I said, yes, ma'am. She said, do you think a woman should have children after 35? I said, Dad, blame it, woman. You should have stopped at 5. 35 is too many kids for any woman to have. Well, she sat down, and I cut around the corner, and I put eyeballs on them girls. Big, burly-looking women. They strong as the dickens, I tell you. Had short sleeves on and short hair. I couldn't help myself. I went right up to them, and I said, excuse me, lady, are y'all from Ireland? One of them looked at me with a scowl on her face and said, no, Dumbo, Wales. I said, I'm sorry, ma'am. Are you two whales from Ireland? That's the last thing I remember right there.